They thought humanity would kneel after watching 7 innocent women executed on a galactic broadcast. But instead, something ancient inside us woke up. Something the stars were never prepared for. Before we begin, where are you watching from? And if you enjoy powerful HFY stories like this, subscribe for the next epic tale.
They said humanity had grown soft. They said humans were too peaceful, too diplomatic, too emotion-driven to ever stand against a galactic superpower. But all those assumptions died the moment the Emperor pressed a button, live, before trillions, and executed 7 unarmed human women for the galaxy to watch. It began as a day like any other on Earth. Screens flickered with routine diplomatic updates. People commuted to work. Children rushed to school. And news anchors spoke calmly about the ongoing negotiations with the Galactic Empire. For weeks, humans had believed diplomacy would win. The Empire had taken 7 human delegates hostage after a border misunderstanding. 7 women chosen for their brilliance and compassion, not for war. The promise was simple. They would be treated as political detainees until the talks concluded. Humanity believed them. The Empire lied. When the broadcast started, no one expected anything abnormal. A sudden imperial symbol filled the screen, crimson, sharp-edged, shimmering with holographic menace. Citizens across thousands of worlds looked up. Even alien merchants paused in the middle of their work. A silence settled over the galaxy as the hologram shifted to a massive throne hall, one lit with black fire and gold-tipped pillars. The Emperor himself appeared, Valak the Eternal, crown forged from the bones of conquered species, cloak woven with metal stolen from dying suns, a man who had ruled for 9,000 years by fear alone. He sat with a cruel smile carved on his face. Beside him stood the 7 human POWs, a doctor with trembling hands, but an unbroken stare, an engineer whose jumpsuit was torn but whose chin was lifted, a linguist bruised from interrogations, but still glaring defiantly, a botanist who had been dragged from work trenches, a young mother who had begged the Empire to spare her child, a diplomat whose voice had once convinced warring planets to lay down arms, a soldier captured while protecting the diplomat retreat team. They were exhausted, malnourished, shackled, but not one looked defeated. Earth held its breath. The Emperor raised a hand, and the hall's temperature seemed to drop through the broadcast itself. To the primitive world called Earth, Valak announced, each word echoing like a verdict. Your species refuses to obey the Empire. You refuse tribute. You refuse surrender. You refuse to understand your place. He gestured to the women. So today we teach you. The camera zoomed in on their faces. Not fear, only anger, resolve, and something uniquely human. Billions across the galaxy leaned closer to their screens. On Earth, people froze in living rooms, offices, and streets. Military personnel at command centers stood silently. A school teacher paused mid-sentence. A mechanic in Karachi dropped his tools. A couple in Sao Paulo stopped mid-conversation. The entire world felt suspended. The soldier stepped forward first. Her voice cracked, but her words thundered louder than the Emperor's. Humanity will remember this, she said, and they will come. The Emperor laughed. That was the moment the galaxy shifted. He gave no further warning, no trial, no explanation, just a casual flick of his fingers. 7 shots fired, cold, efficient, merciless. 7 bodies fell. 7 lives extinguished in front of a trillion witnesses. The executions echoed through the galaxy like a broken scream. Alien viewers recoiled in horror, many for the first time questioning the Empire's rule. But the Emperor didn't care. He simply leaned back in his throne and smirked, like a man who had swatted 7 insects. He ordered the camera to zoom out, revealing banners celebrating the triumph over Earth. Fireworks detonated. Imperial soldiers cheered. The galaxy watched, sickened. But Earth went silent. Not the silence of shock. Not the silence of fear. A deeper silence. Heavy. Ancient. The kind of silence that comes before a storm that changes continents. Military leaders stared at the broadcast, not speaking a word. Politicians simply lowered their heads. Civilians clenched their fists. Mothers cried. Children asked why the Empire hated humans. Elders whispered prayers. Soldiers felt their breaths grow colder, steadier, more focused. The broadcast ended with the Emperor's final words. "Let this be your warning, humanity. Disobey again, and we will take 7 more." The screen faded. For several long seconds, the world was motionless. Then, slowly, in one city after another, one home after another, humans began to stand. Not one leader commanded it. Not one government triggered it. It was instinct. The same instinct that carried ancient humans across oceans, that made them cling to cliffsides, that made them survive plagues and extinctions and endless wars. The instinct that birthed legends, rebellions, revolutions. A nurse in New Delhi wiped her tears and whispered, "No more." A street vendor in Lagos clenched his jaw. "The Emperor thinks we're prey." A scientist in Tokyo whispered, "He has no idea what he's unleashed." A grandmother in Paris, who had lived through 3 global crises, stood and placed a candle on her window for the 7 brave ones. Across the world, candles began to appear, one window at a time, one home at a time, a glow that rose like a heartbeat. In the Pentagon, generals quietly exchanged a single look. They knew what that silence meant. They'd studied human history. They understood the pattern. Humanity never starts the fire, but humanity always ends the war. A young cadet whispered what everyone already knew. "We're going to war." The alien diplomats on Earth trembled. They had seen armies, rebellions, empires, but they had never seen humans like this, stone-faced, unified, wrath simmering beneath the surface. For the first time in centuries, old emergency protocols were unlocked. Dusty, sealed vaults opened automatically. Doors marked classified, "Do not activate without absolute necessity," hissed open. Inside lay humanity's greatest secret, the thing Earth never wanted to use. Not unless someone crossed the one line that could not be crossed. The Emperor crossed it. A final silent message echoed across Earth, not spoken aloud, not written down, but felt by every human heart. "They killed our sisters. They killed our daughters. They killed our people. Now the galaxy will know what humanity truly is." The world did not sleep the night after the broadcast. Streets were quiet. Light stayed on, and humanity hovered between grief and something far sharper. The silence that followed the executions tightened like a fist around the planet, and by dawn, every nation understood the same truth. If they did nothing, the Emperor would do it again. He would take more hostages. More families would grieve. More innocent lives would be used as spectacle. The United Earth Council convened before sunrise. Leaders arrived without ceremony, without speeches, without hesitation. They took their seats, with eyes hollowed by sorrow, yet sharpened by purpose. No votes were needed. No debates. The decision carried itself. Earth would awaken the protocols. For centuries, humanity had prepared for possibilities they hoped would never come. Every empire in history falls eventually, and humans had learned from those collapses. They built contingency plans buried deeper than their deepest bunkers. Plans written in language meant only for moments when humanity's survival, or dignity, was at stake. The one they called Protocol Nemesis was the darkest of them all. The activation required 11 biometric keys from 11 different leaders across the globe. One by one, each key was placed on the table. Lights flashed. Vaults unlocked themselves beneath the council chambers. The air shifted, thick with the weight of what humanity was about to unleash. Generals exchanged a look that captured everything: sorrow for the dead, fury at the Empire, and certainty that the next steps would shake the galaxy. A hologram flickered to life, showing what Nemesis held. The galaxy believed humans were technologically behind, that Earth relied on outdated propulsion, primitive weapons, and crude communications. But Earth had hidden its true advancements behind civilian fronts, developing technologies so dangerous that using them would mean declaring total war. Gravity-forged weaponry, quantum-phase tunneling systems, stealth drives capable of erasing a starship from sensors, AI fleets sealed away because they were considered too effective, and Black Ops units trained for missions humanity hoped would never be required. Earth had never shown these to the galaxy. Now they would. Across the planet, forgotten bunkers groaned open. Factories that once made commercial drones shifted instantly to military production. Dockyards brought out dormant warships long kept under camouflage nets. Civilian aerospace stations received new orders and repurposed themselves into launch hubs. Earth didn't move with panic, it moved with precision. Human scientists stepped out of labs they had lived in for decades. Engineers with silver hair tied their gloves tighter. Young recruits lined up in quiet rows, ready to serve without question. The unity was instant and total. Humanity had fought among itself for centuries, but in the face of cruelty inflicted on innocent women, the species stood as one. When the Nemesis fleet began awakening, the ground trembled. Ships built for deterrence rather than use ignited their reactors for the first time. Their hulls shimmered with adaptive plating capable of swallowing starshine. The engines glowed with power, so dense the surrounding air crackled. These weren't warships, they were consequences. Earth's enemies had always misjudged its strengths. They saw compassion and mistook it for weakness. They saw kindness and called it softness. They saw diplomacy and labeled it submission. But humanity was a death-world species, evolved through extinction events and predatory threats. Behind the calm exterior lived creatures forged by hardship, capable of rapid adaptation and terrifying determination. When humans set their minds to something, peace or war, they pursued it with unmatched intensity. The broadcast of the executions had changed everything. It wasn't merely 7 deaths. It was humiliation. It was cruelty done to people who represented humanity's best qualities. 7 women who had crossed the stars to offer dialogue, not conflict. 7 who were executed because an emperor believed humans were beneath him. Now the universe would meet the species he underestimated. Inside military command centers, officers coordinated the largest mobilization in human history. Satellite grids adjusted positions. Deep space listening posts activated dormant telescopes. Ancient orbital platforms that had drifted silently for decades hummed back to life. Families gathered in homes watching the updates. No one cheered. This wasn't triumph. This wasn't glory. It was justice, and justice carried weight. Among the 7 executed women, one left behind a young daughter. The girl stood at a news podium with trembling hands, reading a message written in her mother's handwriting. She didn't cry. She didn't shake. Her voice cut through the global broadcast with clarity. My mother believed in peace. She believed that every species deserves dignity. If she were here, she would still say that fighting isn't what humans want. But humanity cannot allow cruelty to rule the stars. Do what you must. Make sure no one else loses their mother like I did. The world listened, and something inside everyone solidified into iron. Workers in mining colonies on Mars paused their tasks and saluted the broadcast. Lunar technicians rechecked reactor calibrations. Soldiers absorbed the girl's words like an oath. Hours later, the first Nemesis ships left Earth's atmosphere. They rose silently, engines glowing like blue-white suns, piercing the sky with purposeful grace. No dramatics, no threats. Humanity didn't need to announce its intentions. Every movement already spoke clearly. This was an answer. Space itself seemed to recoil as stealth ships engaged their cloaking. They vanished off Earth's sensors, intentionally, sending a message to the Empire. If Earth could hide its own ships from itself, what chance did their enemies have? Command operators watched the fleet disappear into the darkness with a mix of pride and dread. They knew what these ships were capable of. They understood that once the Nemesis fleet crossed the boundary of safe space, the galaxy would never be the same again. Minutes after the launches, alien ambassadors requested urgent meetings with Earth. Their voices trembled. They had seen how humanity reacted to tragedy before, but never with such silence, such unified resolve. They begged Earth to reconsider, to negotiate, to wait. But it was already too late. Humanity wasn't acting out of rage. It was acting out of duty. The execution of 7 women had been the spark, but the fire that now burned in humanity's core was older, deeper, ancestral. A fire that had carried their species through millennia of struggle. And as the Nemesis fleet slipped into deep space, one message echoed from Earth to the distant stars. We did not want war, but you murdered our own. Now we come prepared. The Nemesis fleet, did not emerge at the Empire's borders, as every alien strategist predicted. Their expectations were based on logic, on patterns, on centuries of conventional warfare. Humanity followed none of those rules. When the pinpoint signatures finally appeared on long-range sensors across the Empire, it was already too late. The humans had jumped inside Imperial territory, bypassing every defense line. The Empire's relay stations flickered with warnings too late to matter. Sensors couldn't track what wasn't there. The stealth drives bent gravity around the ships, hiding mass and heat signatures. To Imperial eyes, the Nemesis fleet was nothing but a ghost, slipping between star systems like a rumor. Then the first strikes began. The broadcast relay that had aired the executions was considered the most secure facility in the region, a fortress of alloy and living metal, orbiting a red dwarf star. It hosted tens of thousands of Imperial soldiers, yet the facility never fired a single shot. It simply went dark. One moment it glowed across every Imperial channel. The next it was a cold, floating carcass. No explosions, no radiation spike, no evidence of battle. It was as if a silent hand had crushed it from the inside. The galaxy whispered in disbelief. The Empire scrambled to understand. Their fear grew when human ships were spotted rescuing alien POWs from neighboring camps. Within hours, dozens of prisoners, tortured, starved, forgotten, were extracted by human Marines who moved like living shadows. The rescued aliens described their liberators with awe. They said humans carried themselves with a focus and gentleness that felt unreal, switching from unstoppable warriors to compassionate protectors in an instant. This duality terrified Imperial commanders more than any weapon. One witness, a scaled alien elder, later said, "They looked at us as if we mattered, as if what the Empire did to us mattered. No soldier of the Empire has ever done that." As the rescues continued, panic spread throughout the Imperial ranks. Entire battalions reported hallucinating movement, shadows that weren't shadows, footsteps that vanished, voices without faces. Sensors detected impacts that left no trace. Entire outposts surrendered after receiving a single warning ping in their comms, an encrypted human code meaning simply leave. Captain Arya Drake led one of the main strike groups. She was not known widely across Earth, but those who knew her understood that she was the kind of leader who rose specifically in moments like this. Calm under fire, decisive without cruelty, relentless without ego. Her command ship, the Horizon's Wake, directed squads across multiple systems. Her strategy was unsettling in its precision. She targeted only facilities linked to the execution, the chain of command that approved it, and the infrastructure enabling the Empire's oppression. Not a single civilian zone was harmed. Not one transport ship was touched. Imperial propaganda had always painted humans as unstable barbarians. Yet the humans behaved with more discipline than any species had seen before. This destroyed the Emperor's narrative faster than any weapon. Reports filtered in from all corners of the Empire, each more alarming than the last. A single human Marine infiltrated a fortress designed to withstand planetary bombardment. He moved through corridors, adapting to gravity changes, without struggle. Imperial soldiers fired volleys of plasma, but the human twisted, rolled, and returned fire with surgical accuracy. He disabled every weapon without killing a single guard. When reinforcements arrived, they found their comrades tied securely, unharmed, with a note taped to the command console. "You are not our enemy. He is." Stories like this traveled faster than starships. Human unpredictability became legend. Their resilience bordered on myth. Their adaptability defied explanation. For every Imperial captain shouting for resistance, 10 others quietly abandoned posts rather than face what they described as the ghosts of Earth. Soon, aliens across the Empire began secretly helping the humans. They provided maps, codes, cache locations, prison layouts, not because humans requested it, but because the executions had crossed a moral line even loyal Imperial civilians could not accept. The 7 women who died had become symbols, martyrs. Their names were whispered in markets and mining outposts. Aliens lit candles for them in hidden corners, praying that humanity would free them from the Emperor's grip. In one camp, a young alien boy, Kieran, told a human medic that one of the executed women, a doctor, had once cared for him during captivity. She had torn her ration bar in half to feed him. She had used her own shirt to bandage his wounds. Kieran had tried to protect her during interrogations. He had failed. When the medic told him the humans were here because of what happened to her, the boy cried and hugged the soldier's arm as if holding on to hope itself. These stories spread, and with every retelling, the Empire's power cracked just a little more. Imperial commanders attempted counterattacks, but their fleets operated on predictable routes and rigid hierarchies. Humans exploited every weakness with brutal efficiency. One Imperial admiral watched helplessly as his fleet vanished from sensors, devoured by the gravity torpedoes the Nemesis fleet unleashed. They didn't explode. They folded inward, crushed by forces they didn't understand. The admiral surrendered rather than watch more lives. He was responsible for disappear. When a nervous officer asked why, he replied, "You cannot fight ghosts who feel nothing but purpose." But the most chilling blow came when the Empire intercepted a message the humans intentionally sent across the galaxy. A simple, clear, unencrypted transmission. Every species received it. Every citizen. Every soldier. Every leader. The message wasn't from a politician or a general. It was from a human child, the daughter of one of the executed women. Her voice trembled but did not break. My mother believed in peace. She believed the stars deserved better than fear. But the Emperor killed her to make a point. Now humanity must make our own point. We do not come to destroy your worlds. We come to end his rule. The message spread like wildfire. Empires crumble when fear is no longer respected. When citizens stop believing in the throne. When one small voice rises louder than an emperor's entire army. And at the end of Section 3, as the Nemesis fleet carved deeper into Imperial territory, a final encrypted signal reached the Emperor's throne world. It contained only 6 words. Words that froze the Empire's blood. We are coming for the Emperor. The deeper humanity pushed into Imperial territory, the faster the Empire unraveled. Not because the humans struck every world. They didn't need to. The Empire had survived 9,000 years through intimidation, not loyalty. Once fear cracked, everything underneath began to rot. Humanity didn't just hit military targets. They hit the belief that the Empire was invincible. And that belief had been the only thing holding millions of species in chains. It began with small uprisings. A mining colony on Vaxxor refused a shipment order. A labor station sabotaged its own comm lines. A group of alien workers released a single statement across an encrypted channel. If humans can fight back, so can we. These small rebellions might have fizzled in any other era, but with the Nemesis fleet moving like a storm across the stars, they ignited entire sectors. Imperial governors panicked. Without guidance from the Emperor, who had sealed himself behind triple-layered shields, local leaders tried to crush revolts quickly. Instead, the crackdowns made things worse. Images of civilians being beaten or executed spread instantly. Each atrocity turned more neutral species into allies of necessity, even if only in their hearts. Human forces amplified the chaos simply by existing. Their refusal to harm civilians became a rallying cry. Videos leaked from multiple liberated stations showing human soldiers offering food, medical help, and safety to terrified aliens. Some aliens had expected humans to be monstrous, given the propaganda. Instead, they saw kindness and discipline, a strength that did not lash out recklessly. At a liberated processing station, an elderly alien knelt before Captain Arya Drake and asked why humans risked their lives for non-humans. Arya lifted her up gently and said, "Because injustice anywhere is a threat everywhere, and because the women he killed were willing to die for you. We honor them by protecting those they cared about." The old alien cried, and her tears became a symbol. Other species began recording their stories. Refugees spoke of how one of the executed women, the botanist, had taught them how to grow food in barren soil. A linguist she died beside had translated danger warnings into their language. The doctor had healed prisoners without hesitation. The engineer had fixed failing life support systems. The mother had comforted children who no longer had parents. The diplomat had defended alien dignity during negotiations, even when it upset her own superiors. The soldier had shielded prisoners during raids, placing her body between them and brutality. The galaxy realized the seven were not hostages. They were heroes, stolen from a species that valued compassion as much as strength. That realization shattered the Emperor's authority. Imperial officials began abandoning their posts. Some surrendered to the nearest human fleet immediately, pleading for protection. Others fled into neutral space. Those who remained loyal were increasingly isolated, their commands ignored or sabotaged. The Emperor tried to spin the events, broadcasting desperate speeches, claiming humans were barbaric invaders. His voice no longer carried power. And then something happened that sealed the Empire's fate. The Prime Minister publicly defected. Her broadcast was delivered from a hidden bunker inside the Imperial capital. Her voice, calm but trembling with fear, echoed across thousands of worlds. She admitted the executions were not an accident, not a misunderstanding, but a deliberate act meant to humiliate an entire species. She revealed suppressed documents detailing the Emperor's long history of secret purges and war crimes. But what truly broke the galaxy was her final confession. She had tried to stop the executions and was nearly killed for it. She ended her speech with a single line. If justice exists anywhere among the stars, it will come from humanity. The moment she finished, a wave of revolts exploded. Planetary guards threw down their weapons. Civilians stormed garrisons. High-ranking officials fled. The Emperor responded by declaring martial law across the entire empire, ordering his fleet to fire on any rebellious world. But the fleet hesitated. None wanted to face the Nemesis fleet. None wanted to fight the species who fought only those who deserved it. Meanwhile, Earth's forces continued advancing. They struck only strategic centers, command hubs, communication arrays, weapon factories, but each strike amplified the revolts. Human cyber teams infiltrated Imperial systems, shutting down their treasury in minutes. Bills stopped being paid. Logistics collapsed. Supply ships abandoned routes. A society built on fear was crumbling under the weight of its own ghosts. In the middle of this collapse, a message surfaced. A small voice. Kieran, the alien boy saved by the human doctor, appeared on multiple underground networks. Someone had helped him record a short video. He clutched a medical cloth the doctor had once given him and spoke with raw honesty. "I was nobody," he said, "just a sick boy in a prison camp. But she helped me. She helped everyone. She didn't care what species I was. She told me life was worth fighting for. If the humans fight for her, then I will too." It spread faster than any political broadcast. Millions of aliens repeated his phrase. It became a chant, a battle cry, a promise. If the humans fight for her, then we will too. Even human soldiers felt chills when they heard it. More species joined the resistance. Entire fleets mutinied. Systems declared independence. Former Imperial soldiers transmitted coordinates and access codes directly to human starships, enabling them to dismantle entire defenses without firing a shot. Arya Drake negotiated with multiple rebel factions, forming alliances that had seemed impossible only days before. She made it clear, humanity wasn't here to conquer. They were here to remove a tyrant. Her calm certainty united star systems, once paralyzed by fear. She didn't need threats. Her presence, supported by humanity's actions, was enough. While the Empire tore itself apart, the Emperor hid behind thicker walls, issuing orders that no longer mattered. His inner circle shrank. Rumors spread of paranoia, of him screaming at ghosts in his throne room, convinced humanity was inside the walls. In truth, they were still several systems away. But fear had already defeated him long before the first human boot would reach the palace. As the Nemesis fleet approached the Imperial capital, the galaxy held its breath. Billions of aliens watched the sky, wondering when the humans would appear, wondering whether they would be markers of destruction or symbols of a future where justice meant something again. By the time the fleet arrived, the capital was barely held together. Soldiers abandoned posts. Civilians swarmed evacuation shuttles. The Prime Minister awaited humanity's arrival with a bowed head, ready to hand over power to anyone who could end the reign of terror. The galaxy was no longer afraid of humanity. It was waiting for them. The Emperor's palace burned behind him, a collapsing mountain of white stone and molten alloys, but humanity didn't slow. The storm of ash and fractured marble rose into the dim atmosphere like a funeral pyre for every life he had stolen. The 7 women whose final breaths he turned into a spectacle had become symbols far greater than the tyrant who murdered them. Their names, Ariel, June, Maria, Sanaa, Kale, Drusilla, and Lynn, were now engraved into the pulse of every soldier still marching. And every soldier marched with only one purpose left: end it. The Emperor fled through the labyrinth halls, dragging the weight of his robes, clutching at his chest as the deep thunder of humanity's forces shook the palace foundations. His guards abandoned him long ago, scattering like insects under a cruel sun. He stumbled through a shattered corridor, passing murals carved with millennia of imperial victories, each one now cracked, broken, dripping molten gold as flames devoured the walls. The empire he built on conquest was being swallowed whole, and for the first time in his reign, he understood fear, not as a word, not as a political tool, but as something alive and clawing inside his ribs. A door exploded inward behind him. The shock wave hurled him forward, scraping his knees across the polished obsidian floor. He screamed and crawled, his jeweled crown rolling away into the inferno. Footsteps followed, heavy, deliberate, unhurried. He knew that cadence. All the galaxy now knew it. Humanity's footsteps. Not soldiers rushing toward danger. Not troops eager for glory. But people who had decided something unforgivable had been done, and someone had to pay. "Don't kill me," the Emperor shouted, his voice cracking as he turned and pressed his back to the wall. Flames coated the ceiling like liquid lightning. "Please, please, I surrender." A figure stepped out of the smoke. Not armored, not armed with anything extravagant. Just a human, Commander Mara Hale, soot-smeared, eyes burning hotter than the fire around her. She had seen the broadcast. She had stood in silence as millions cried and billions raged. And she was here, at the end of the world he built. "You surrendered after you killed them," she said, her voice low but sharp enough to cut through stone. "Not before." "They were prisoners," he whimpered. "I had the right. I was sending a message." "You did," she said. "You sent it to all of us." He scrambled to rise, slipping on his own robes. "I can give you planets, riches, alliances. You humans love alliances, don't you?" Mara didn't move closer. She didn't have to. Her presence suffocated him. "You think you understand humans," she said, "but you only ever saw us as quiet. You mistook mercy for weakness, diplomacy for fear, patience for obedience." "It was just 7, he yelled, grasping at anything, any logic that might save him. "You wouldn't destroy an entire empire for just 7. Mara's jaw tightened. Behind her, through broken walls, the lights of orbital strikes illuminated the sky like vengeful stars. Human fleets were dismantling the Empire's war machine with terrifying precision. No cities targeted, no civilians harmed. Only military assets, shipyards, fuel reserves, command posts. Each hit with cold, calculated finality. "It was never just 7, she said. "It was what you made them represent." The ground shook again. Somewhere deep in the palace, a reactor blew, sending a long rumble that felt like the dying heartbeat of an empire. "Please," the Emperor whispered, sinking to his knees. "Don't let humanity become monsters. Don't do this." Mara crouched so their eyes met. "Humanity didn't come here to become monsters," she said. "We came to bury one." He stared at her, breath shaking, terror running through every vein. "And what happens to me?" he asked. "You'll stand trial," Mara replied. "Not an execution, not torture. A public trial, with witnesses from every world you terrorized." His mouth fell open, not in relief, but disbelief. "A trial? You still want justice. After everything I've done, you still cling to your laws." Mara didn't answer at first. She stood and offered a small, exhausted exhale. "That's the difference," she said. "You broadcast their deaths to prove your power. Humanity will broadcast your trial to prove something greater." "And what is that?" he croaked. "That you never broke us." The palace walls groaned as another shockwave punched through the structure. Mara gestured toward the hallway. "Move. Now." before this place collapses. He staggered to his feet and followed her, not because he trusted her, but because the fire behind him left no choice. For the first time since his coronation, the Emperor walked without command, without escort, without respect, just a trembling man, surrounded by the ruins of his legacy. As they reached the evacuation chamber, a transport shuttle waited, sleek, metallic, unmistakably human. Soldiers saluted Mara, then turned their cold eyes toward him. Not hatred, not rage, just the impersonal recognition reserved for something already finished. A dead empire walking. When the shuttle doors closed and the engines ignited, the Emperor looked out the window at his homeworld. Entire armories detonated. War fleets fell from orbit in flaming trails. But cities remained untouched. Civilian shelters glowed with safe illumination. Humanity was dismantling the Empire with surgical precision, denying him even the twisted satisfaction of mutual destruction. "You will never survive what comes next," he said, attempting one last spark of defiance. Mara didn't look at him. "We already did. The moment you killed them, the galaxy united around us. Their families, their alliances, their cultures. You didn't wipe out 7 lives. You ignited 7 worlds." The Emperor opened his mouth, but nothing came out. The truth hollowed him. The broadcast he meant to intimidate the galaxy had become the very reason humanity rose like a tidal wave. Empires feared death, feared rebellion, feared rivals. But humans feared only one thing: failing to protect their own. The shuttle punched into orbit, revealing the full human armada, thousands of coordinated vessels forming an iron constellation around the dying empire. No chaos, no gloating, just a silent, terrifying unity. Humanity didn't come for conquest. Humanity didn't come for revenge. Humanity came to end a lesson written in blood. The galaxy would remember this day, not because an emperor fell, but because 7 voices silenced too soon became a roar that shook the stars. Humanity didn't become monsters. Humanity reminded the galaxy why you never try to make one out of them.